morning. Thank you everyone so much for being here on this gloomy day, gloomy for more reasons than one. Before I begin, I just want to give a quick content warning. My talk will include discussion of sexual violence, and while no explicit details are given, I want to make sure that you are all aware and that you do what you need to do to take care of yourselves, whatever that means for you. And there are also resource cards that Morgan brought out on the table out there with like the campus safety hotline on it. So trust me, I will not be offended if you feel the need to step out, close your eyes, whatever you need to do, please do. I used to get in trouble for daydreaming in class. It wasn't my fault. My 7th grade homeroom teacher sat me right next to the window that overlooked the playground. What was I supposed to do, not look outside? I would lay my head on the table and let the sun warm my face, wishing I was out playing in whatever imaginary world my friends and I had created that week, even though playing pretend wasn't really cool anymore. In high school, I got better at hiding my daydreaming. Long lectures were an opportunity for me to escape to a place far away from whatever was going on in my life, from homework assignments I was putting off to fights with friends that left me riddled with anxiety. Daydreaming about scenarios that will likely never happen was easy, but dreaming realistically about my future was actually really difficult for me in high school. I struggled deeply with depression, and there were more days than I'd like to admit where I was convinced that I wouldn't live long enough to make it to college. I had a lot of trouble picturing myself on a university campus, living in a dorm and going to classes, joining clubs, and making friends. I didn't believe that any of it was meant to happen for me until it was actually happening. I knew my mental health was improving during my first year when I started to be able to dream realistically about my future. I could truly picture myself 1, 5, even 10 years in the future beyond just a fuzzy daydream. I felt confident in the plans I was making, and by the end of my freshman year, I was convinced that I knew the exact direction my life was heading. Spoiler alert, I didn't. The illusion that I had everything figured out didn't last long. Before classes even started my sophomore year, a painful personal experience with sexual assault dramatically changed the trajectory of my life. In the following 2 years, I dealt with the aftermath of the assault in a variety of ways. First came the attempt to ignore it. Life went on as usual, and I continued down the path that I had set for myself my first year. I would dedicate myself to my work as an interfaith intern at the Truett Center, take human service studies and religious studies classes to prepare myself for divinity school so that I could eventually become a chaplain, and have a great time with the friends I had made during my first few weeks on campus. But something felt off. This wasn't my dream anymore because I wasn't the same person who originally had that dream. This left me feeling lost. Who was I without my plans for the future? I had no idea who my present self was, only the future self who I wanted to become. So, after my plan to ignore the situation and move on fell through, I made the difficult decision to pursue a Title IX case. The decision to report was an incredibly personal one that not every survivor makes, which is difficult to understand until you actually go through it, as the investigation is often as traumatic as the assault itself. Throughout the investigation, I watched the dream life I had built for myself begin to crumble around me. I no longer had any interest in chaplaincy or spirituality in general, for that matter. The pandemic, which began a couple weeks into the investigation, separated me from my friends and mentors at Elon when I needed them the most. Dealing with the uncertainty of COVID and the uncertainty of a Title IX case at the same time was too much for me to handle, so I chose to pursue an informal resolution, which, despite the name, did not leave me feeling very resolved. Back on Elon's campus for my junior year, my dream life needed to be built from scratch. I moved into a cute little apartment with beautiful sunlit rooms and about 5 minutes of hot water per day with Caitlin, someone I had known since freshman year but never really knew. It didn't take long for us to go from being roommates to best friends and from best friends to family. In the building of my dream life, she served as the foundation. At the beginning of the school year, Julia Metz, who was my advocate during my Title IX investigation, encouraged me to join the GLC's gender-based violence prevention team. I wasn't sure if facilitating trainings and planning events surrounding sexual violence was the way I wanted to deal with what had happened to me, but I quickly felt embraced by the team and fell in love with the work they were doing. My role on the GVP team, along with the example set to me by Julia of what it means to be an advocate, has inspired me to obtain my Master's of Social Work and pursue a career in gender-based violence prevention after graduation. I absolutely despise the saying, everything happens for a reason, but I would be remiss if I didn't admit that my passion for sexual violence prevention never would have entered my heart had I not gone through what I did. My current postgraduate education and career goals wouldn't have presented themselves as possibilities had the past few years of my life not happened. My dream is to one day work with students who experience gender-based violence and do for them what Julia did for me 2 years ago, advocate for them and support them during what may be the most difficult time in their college careers. So now comes the difficult part, waiting. Waiting for my dream to take hold. Because the truth is, my dream doesn't take place on this campus. I have a deep love and appreciation for the people I've met throughout my 4 years at Elon. many of whom will continue to be important parts of my life after graduation. I am beyond grateful for the opportunities that have been given to me, from being able to help coordinate the Truett Center's annual Ripple Interfaith Conference to writing SGA legislation that introduced a gender-based violence prevention pilot program to student organizations. But my dream can't happen here, because my dream doesn't include driving past the dorm where everything changed sophomore year. It doesn't include looking over my shoulder constantly every time I step outside. My perpetrator transferred to a different school at the beginning of our senior year after more allegations began to surface about his behavior, or I assume that's why he transferred. But as long as I'm in this place, I don't think I'll be able to move on. This is an incredibly dramatic comparison, but those who know me know I wouldn't be true to myself if I didn't bring up Lord of the Rings in this talk. In the final movie, yes, the movie, sorry nerds, there's a scene at the very end when Frodo tells Sam that he's going into the West with Gandalf, Bilbo, and the elves. Here he will live out his days with no worries or pain, no burdens to carry. When Sam asks why he's leaving, Frodo replies, "We set out to save the Shire, and it has been saved, but not for me." He knows that even though the place he calls home is no longer in danger, the trauma he endured on his journey will never leave him. As long as he is in Middle-earth, he will never be able to truly exhale. I have not exhaled since that night my sophomore year. Even though the person who is responsible for making me hold my breath is no longer here, the way I feel has not changed. So, I wait. I don't think I'm alone in admitting that I spend a lot of time waiting for things to happen, then forget to enjoy them while they're happening, because by the time they're happening, I'm waiting for the next thing to happen. But I've really struggled with this as I prepare to graduate in the spring and attend grad school in the fall, which if anyone wants to go ahead and choose which graduate school I go to, please see me after this, because I'm really struggling. As we know, there's a Morgan Harper Nichols quote for everything, and this is the one that grounds me when anxiety about the future keeps me from being present. The future will arrive when it is meant to arrive, and you do not have to exhaust yourself trying to figure out how you will get there. I'm going to say that one again. The future will arrive when it is meant to arrive, and you do not have to exhaust yourself trying to figure out how you will get there. I often forget to look around and remember that just because this isn't my dream life doesn't mean it isn't a good life. And this chapter in my life will be ending soon. I'm only living with my best friend for a few more months, and then we're going our separate ways. I only have a few more Truett Center events with Caroline, Catherine, and Liz, only a few more GVP meetings with Morgan, only a few more venting sessions in Allison's office. I take comfort in the knowledge that even while we're apart, we will still be encouraging each other's dreams from a distance and holding on to them as if they were our own. But it's still difficult to wrestle with the realization that soon our daily lives will not be wrapped up in one another's. For now, I will tether myself to my present life, but I will still allow myself to daydream. I will picture myself walking down the streets of a new city, discovering new places and meeting new people. I will imagine what my life might look like from the apartment I live in to the community that I surround myself with. I will continue to build upon the vision of who I want to be when I leave Elon. So as I prepare to leave the metaphorical Shire and my dream life begins to take hold, I return to the young girl who was convinced that she would not live to see her 18th birthday. I will say to her, "Look at us now. There is space for our dreams. Don't be afraid to hope for your future." I encourage you all to take the space your dreams deserve. Thank you.